Hey guys, Jambino here. The new Avengers game was released a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, it's a mess. That doesn't mean it's not fun though. It's just clearly a rushed product that combines many styles of games without a lot of cohesiveness that it obviously needs. Was this a surprise to people? No, and it shouldn't have been. As some might remember, it was revealed all the way back in January 2017 and it was supposed to come out in 2018, not be announced like actual came out. And obviously it missed that, seeing how it didn't get really announced until E3 2019. And at that press conference, Square showed off nothing, no gameplay, a trailer that looked rough, a cast trailer that's for some reason spotlighted the voice actors, even though all the voice actors are the ones that show up in literally everything. So there's really not a pizzazz to it. The trailer looked rough. The internet shitted on it immediately, and with a lot of people saying the video games Avengers looked just like the stunt doubles of the movies. I understand why people would say that, seeing how the MCU is a big cultural cornerstone at this point in time, especially last year when Endgame came out. But I've never really bought into that kind of complaint. I always thought the movies did a very good job of looking like at the comics, so that's not something I really bought into. Take Black Widow, for example. This is what she looks like in the game, which looks like this, who looks like that. Then with Cap, same thing. Game, looks like this, looks like that. Iron Man, looks like this, and looks like that. But despite all that, the game looked rough. There is no denying that. And it was Square's fault. They didn't choose to show the best stuff, which was the campaign. It was only all the loot stuff, all the endgame stuff. And unfortunately, it carried all the bad buzz to the release, which I think is deserved. Because even as someone who was cautiously optimistic towards the game, not a lot about it seemed like it was going to be, something on the level of like Spider-Man PS4 or anything like that. So let's dive into the actual product. The campaign is arguably the best part of the game, whereas the rest of it is more the loot focus stuff that takes place in large generic maps with a bunch of different random objectives. The campaign is smaller levels that are handcrafted to show the best of each character. I say mostly because the missions alternate between the smaller stuff and the more generic stuff, but the highlight of the game stuff comes from the story missions. And in the game, even though it's called the Avengers, the campaign's main character is Kamala Khan, as some of y'all might know, is the new Miss Marvel. Well, not really new, as she's been around for 7-8 years. And as characterization-wise, she is the best character in the story, as she is the Cypher character. The players, we see the world through her. We see all these people through her. Even though sometimes the writing, not with Kamala, but with everyone in general, can be a bit annoying, Kamala is the character that brings life to it. As most people know, the game starts with A-Day, that big celebration at the beginning that's been shown in every trailer, beta, anything. And you start with Khan as she's wandering around this Avengers celebration convention with her father on the new helicarrier. And you meet some of the heroes and what I think are very heartwarming bits before a surprise attack happens and you're switched over to the characters, and which acts as a small tutorial for each character, minus Kamala because she's a kid at that point. Spoiler: Cap dies, and the attack causes a rise of strange powers in certain people, which in turn causes these people to be called Inhumans, and as a result of all this, public opinion, the Avengers goes south, and the team ends up disbanding. And then the game flash forwards 5 years later, when Kamal's a teenager, and comes across what could be a big break in the fight against AIM, which is the massive corporation that has taken over, just safeguarding the world in the Avengers' absence. And basically, she has to reunite the Avengers and start a grassroots revolution against AIM, who also has the public opinion on its side. So the Avengers are looked at like the unwanted people in the fight. Like, it's really interesting what they do with it. I'm not really gonna go further depth in the story because of some spoilers, but each character gets their time to shine in the story with cool moments for each character, and it's no doubt the best part of the game. After you beat the campaign, you start playing in the Avengers Initiative mode, the game's endgame. It's fairly simple. You keep doing missions, which are divided into a couple different types. War zones, the bigger map missions that are big maps filled with some optional objectives and puzzles. Drop zones, small bite-sized missions that only have one main objective. Faction missions, war zones, but you're doing them for a certain faction and net you XP for that faction. Vaults, which you open vaults, obviously, and get lots of loot. Hives, multi-mission objective missions that are for the higher end characters, and the closest thing this game has to a raid right now. Iconic missions, which are geared towards one of the main characters and advances their individual stories. And finally, villain sectors, which are big linear missions that end with a big boss fight. There are reports of a raid coming soon, so it looks like they're going to be expand the variety of different missions available, which is good because most of them have you just doing variations of the same objectives. Protect this guy, beat up these guys, destroy this generator, protect this area, free these Inhumans or shield agents. It's rinse and repeat, and in a way that Destiny is, it is weirdly repetitive, but not at the same time. And the game features two social hubs, one being the helicarrier and the one being a story related one that I'm not going to spoil here. If you would compare these to Destiny, I would say the helicarrier is like the tower and the other one's like the farm. The helicarrier is where all the essential shops are at, such as the cosmetic vendor, the fabricator machine, while the other hub is mainly used to get assignments and spend that faction's XP. In the assignments, they're literally just the Avengers versions of Destiny's bounty system. They refresh every day, have some small objectives for you to complete. It's literally a carbon copy. While the cosmetic shop has different cosmetics on sale for in-game currency called units, which isn't the real world currency. We'll get to that later. But save for a few valuable costumes, they rotate daily, while the more valuable ones rotate on a weekly basis. The vendor sells 3 different kinds of cosmetics: the costumes, emotes, and nameplates, which are pictures representing each of the heroes. I found them to be all harmless, even though the game's section of costumes leave much more to be desired. As it turns out, most of them are just reskins of the same 5 models. It honestly comes off as very lazy. And seeing how this game was in development for years, you would think they'll put much more effort in this kind of thing. But, as any game as a service, Destiny, Warframe, even Anthem, the world's gonna change, gonna grow over time, and they've already lined out a DLC roadmap, starting with next month's edition of the female Hawkeye Kate Bishop, and adding her associated missions. Then continuing with Clint, the original Hawkeye, in November. And then who's all but confirmed, Black Panther, coming up after him in December. It looks like the game has a good future ahead of itself. And it's also rumored that a Wakanda raid is coming with Black Panther. And there is that leaked list of like 16 different heroes, including like people like Ant-Man and the Winter Soldier, coming even closer in the near future. So it looks like this game is going to have a healthy growth. Against the overwhelming opinion online, I do believe that the game's version of the Battle Pass system is actually not that bad. Like most Battle Passes, you gain rewards for completing in-game feats, which are challenges that refresh on a both weekly and daily basis. Most of the rewards are cosmetic, and similar to Fortnite, you do get the game's premium currency as part of the challenge card. Like most Battle Passes, there's a free path and premium path, but Square announced a little bit before launch that the 6 launch heroes would have their premium cards unlocked automatically. So theoretically, the first few DLC heroes can basically have their challenge cards unlocked for free if you're inclined to grind out the other 6 heroes. I know it's not the most popular opinion, but I do think it's a good pro-consumer system, at least for the start of the game. Avengers is the spawn of the late MMO Marvel Heroes and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. It's a third-person brawler that has RPG and light MMO elements tacked onto it to try to bring some depth to it. Despite the RPG stuff, it doesn't prevent it from being repetitive after a bit. You start at level 1 with the power level 0, the level cap's 50, and the power level cap's 150. One of my favorite things about the RPG mechanics is that you do get a sense of you're getting better and skilled as you progress from level to level. For the first number of levels, you're basically playing a dumpsuit brawler with no depth, but as you level up, you start unlocking more and more moves that really start to set different characters apart. While it doesn't really make sense world-wise, because why would some members of the Avengers that have existed for years in this game's continuity not already be pretty skilled? But nevertheless, I do like the sense of progression, which is about all the nice things I can say about the loot and leveling system, which I'll get to later. Since the game is a brawler, you punch, kick, and maim all the various enemies. Each character has a ranged attacks. Iron Man blasts people, Hulk throws boulders at people, Thor throws his hammer, etc., etc., which can be upgraded as part of the tree as well. Thor has a cool bonus of being able to pin people with a hammer, which I think is worth noting. Each character has what is called their intrinsic power, which is activated by holding the right bumper, R2, RT, whatever the fuck it is on PC. This is where most of the different characters' unique abilities start to show. Hulk's can make him near invulnerable, with a slight emphasis on near. Iron Man's powers his ranged abilities and a shield he can use to block attacks. Kamala can grow bigger and counter people, etc., etc. It's a mechanic that's decent and adds some well-needed variety in the gameplay. Then there are the heroic abilities. They come in 3 different flavors: support, assault, ultimate. Support heroics are used to generally buff you and your teammates with various boosts and other stuff you can customize via the skill trees. Assaults are powerful attacks that are good at clearing enemies and can be customized via the skill trees. The ultimates are the big powerful moves that do a lot of damage. These can be augmented far more than the other 2 kinds, but the main complaint with all these ultimates was how slow they recharge. Some loot you can get can decrease that charge time, but like my main complaint with the loot system, those charge boosts don't actually do shit. There are some big flaws in the design, however. For starters, this game feels like it's having a big war between 2 very different games. The single player versus the looter games as a service stuff. If you're playing solo, there is way too much being cut off from you. Some of the side objectives require the player to open or smash through certain doors. To balance some characters out, some can do some, while others can't. For example, Thor can't hack the door, but can smash open one with the hammer. Iron Man can hack a door, but can't smash it open unless he gets his Hulkbuster suit out, which basically wastes an ultimate. But they have patched this, but originally some couldn't do either. Cap, for example, is one of the people who couldn't do either. If you're playing Cap solo and you're having an objective, it's annoying. You can't even command your AI companions to do stuff. There's just some bad design issues that are just downright confusing. There's even some basic quality of life improvements that I would think benefits the game greatly. Why isn't there a compass / minimap? Why isn't there a ping system? Why can't you order around companions? And why can't matchmaking work? A compass or minimap would go a long way. Much easier to navigate the map instead of just spamming the down D-pad multiple times a session. It's so easy to lose track of teammates in this current system. For a game that's been in development as long as this one, you would think they would have a look at the recent rise of the ping system and implemented it. It's certainly essential in games like this since last year when Apex Legends came out. And it's just good for any situation. How could they not have this? With the door stuff, I think it would have been easier if you get some form of order around companions. And then finally, matchmaking. It's a clusterfuck the way it's set up. The way it's set up is that there's no multiple heroes. Each person can only play as one hero. And while I get it, at this point in the game there's only 6 people, so there's not a lot of selection to go around. It is going to get easier, but as it's set up right now, it's not a good system. And they do need to get a unified playlist system a la something like Destiny just to get randos and matches. Sure, there's a quick match option, but the couple times I've tried using it, it hasn't worked out so well for me. At the time of my recording, this is how far I progressed with each character. My highest is Thor, and my lowest is Black Widow. As you might guess, Thor is my favorite. I haven't gotten any of the characters to the cap yet, but I just attribute that to my work in school taking my time away. I like Thor the most because of his fighting style, and I fucking love pinning people with a hammer. Iron Man, even though he's my second highest level, he isn't my second favorite hero to play as. I do enjoy playing as him though. I really like the variety in his different attacks, and there's something suited for most situations. His 3 different attack types are repulsors, lasers, and rockets. Repulsors are good for all-around use, lasers excel in group attacks or when Iron Man is surrounded, which will happen a lot. And rockets are great for damaging single targets or doing splash damage in groups that are close together. Hulk is actually my second player to play as. Even though he doesn't feel as invincible as I feel like he should be, I do think he's very fun to play as, specifically as you unlock more of his advanced skills. One of his gameplay hooks is him grabbing enemies, and you can upgrade that to grabbing 2 people at once, and I find that really fucking fun. Cap. He is simultaneously the least interesting hero to play as and the most interesting. I would describe him as an acquired taste. He plays like a bootleg Batman, and has abilities that are very specific to certain situations. He's most useful when playing multiplayer because he's best used as to buff people. Kamala, she's a lot of fun. Even though her realistic body stretching still kinda unsettles me, I still think she's very fun to play as. I'm still pretty low level with her, so I can't speak much of her fighting style other than that she's a good all-around hero and plays most like a basic brawler type. Black Widow, she's the one I barely played with. That being said though, I do enjoy playing as her. She's quick, nimble, I like the gunplay, and her ultimate's pretty cool. It's just her beating up with a two-sided laser staff like Darth Maul. It's pretty fucking rad. The loot system is the backbone of the game. It's also a backbone that's completely worthless. I don't know if the game needed a loot system, but if it was going to get one, it should have been far better thought out and implemented than this. Biggest complaint about it is the visible loot. I think it's very disappointing that none of the loot changes the appearance of any of the characters. I wish it was there, but at the same time, I kind of understand why it's not. Injustice 2 did it in a cool way, but I understand that was a smaller scale fighting game, and it's probably a much easier place to implement it than a game like this. Either way, the system just sucks. None of the stat points do make a difference. Almost every piece of loot is expendable. When I started playing the game, I tried to play like an RPG where I debated which gear was best, but eventually after reading a lot of the people's opinions on the subject, I just gave up. Every time I got gear, I just held down the equip best gear button. Why is there a button for equipping best gear? Doesn't that take out a lot of the fun when it comes to getting the best gear for your desired build? Are they even built in this game? I guess it doesn't even matter, because a lot of the different perks don't even make a difference. There's also all these stats effects that aren't explained in the game, and only good expectation I got on them was from an infographic that was released on Reddit 2 weeks after release. Why isn't that kind of info not in the game? You can also boost different gear via the different resources earned in game, but it also doesn't have a purpose other than unlocking perks for each gear. The simple truth is that there's really no point in upgrading or doing anything like that for your gear until you hit the power cap for the gear. And the power cap for the gear is 130, so nothing you're going to get is going to go above that. You're only going to hit 150 to fully upgrade all your gear, plus the major artifact that you have equipped. Personally, for me, this is where the game disappoints me the most. It's so boring, so dull. Like, there's no inspiration going on here at all. It's fine if you go for the realistic look, but you have the Avengers here. You have a giant green dude and a teenager who can stretch her arms out and stuff. I don't think going a bit more stylized with it would have been too bad. Mix out with the score, which is basically
insert grand superhero music here.
The bland UI, other elements, and you basically have a bland seeming game. And it mostly comes through when you look at the enemies. Antagonist is AIM. AIM is mostly robots. I get this comes with the territory of the organization, but beating up the same 7 different kinds of robots, it's boring after a while. Obviously, this is going to change with some of the stuff they tease in the campaign and whatever they're adding through the initiative, but for now, the Avengers simply doesn't have a lot of pizzazz going on. As you might have heard, the Avengers is a haven for bugs. There are quite a lot. You've got bugs from players locking previously unlocked costumes. I personally locked access to the suits that you get from beating the campaign. And that's not even the most destructive bugs I've faced. I faced enemies that caused the environments to glitch, and the game even crashed a few minutes after that particular fight in the same mission. Sometimes you'll float out of the map. Weird shit like that. I did notice the bugs do happen more multiplayer, and they're even more severe there. Me and my buddy experienced multiple occasions of enemies falling through the ground and making it impossible to complete certain missions. For a game that has been in development for so long to release in this state is intolerable. They just released a big patch that fixes many bugs, so props for them fixing these problems ASAP, but the game shouldn't have been shipped in this shape. The game is a mess. Yes, I do enjoy it a lot, but it's hard not to ignore the faults of the game. And they're very big faults. You got bugs, game design issues, repetitive gameplay. It's all there. I'm looking forward to see what the future to see what the game expands to, as well as gameplay tweaks that may arrive in the future. But do I recommend this game now? Probably not. Even though I really like it, it just isn't polished enough to warrant a recommendation to another person. I have no doubt that's going to change for the better in the future, just like similar games as a service games like Destiny and Warframe. but at this moment, Avengers is just hard to recommend. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. This game has been getting mixed reactions, so if you agree or disagree with me leave a comment, we can have a discussion. Other than that, y'all have a good one.